We're here today to talk about navigating incarceration during COVID-19 and what it's like coming home during a pandemic. My name is Julie Anderson, and my son has been incarcerated for over 25 years. And I want to say in that 25 years, I've visited prison thousands of times. And there was a period when he was in Cook County that we had non-contact visits for 2 years. So I was unable to hug him for 2 years. But this has been the most challenging of any time he's been incarcerated is during COVID. We haven't had a visit in 14 months. And he's just, the fear when COVID initially started, and would he get it? And how was the Department of Corrections handling it? And all of those unknowns last March. It was very scary. So we're here today to talk to Harold, who's someone who was in prison when COVID came out and someone who was released during the pandemic. Harold, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Absolutely. So hi, everyone. My name is Harold Hagerman. And I'm an impacted individual, a system impacted individual. I was incarcerated in 1991 at the age of 17, and I was subsequently sentenced to 61 years in the Illinois Department of Corrections. And after serving 28 and a half of those years, I was released last April 29th to be exact. So I just celebrated a year of being home, a year anniversary. And as I'm sure you can imagine, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Julie.
We're happy to have you and welcome home.
Thank you.
Last week or the other week, we chatted with Nelson Morris about COVID-19 in prison. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience in prison during the start of the pandemic, what that felt like?
Absolutely. It was terrifying. It was terrifying, to be honest. It was, it was like the early part of it. Like I say, I came home in April, so I was there for the beginning, like the really scary part when, the whole world was, shook up. And for us, it almost, from what we were seeing and hearing, it was like really terrifying, because all we knew that people were catching this virus and dying by the masses. So, that period of time was really scary. And it was already kind of, it had started spreading through the prison system. So yeah, that's kind of bracing. And, the only thing we knew about it was almost like it was a death sentence, or the way we were processing it at that time. Like catching that virus was like a death sentence.
So COVID was on your radar, definitely, even though you were released shortly after it started. How did you find out about it?
Oh, through the news outlets. It was it was a big deal. It was, it hadn't, so like I say, it was the early stages of it, but not so early that it wasn't a whole lot going on. Like it was a whole lot of death already. Like I say, it had already hit Stateville. It was running through Stateville rampant. We were checking by counties and stuff, the numbers and things of that nature. So it was like a really scary time. But like the media outlets were talking about it constantly. It was all over the news. It was on every outlet. And then J.B. Pritzker was doing his daily press conferences at that time. So we were watching that and staying glued to the TV. And like I say, monitoring the counties and seeing the county maps, like go from, 0 cases to, 3 cases to, 9 cases. And we watching it come downstate and kind of move at a rapid pace. And it looked like it was like leaving no county untouched. So we brace it because we know it's just a matter of time before it got there.
So it sounds like you had regular access to news reports on TV and possibly through the newspaper, although I don't think they actually deliver the paper inside.
But they kind of did, but very few people had subscriptions. I say that.
Yeah. So did the prison staff keep you informed?
Absolutely not.
No.
They didn't even take it seriously. Like they were surprised that we were as informed as we were, because they would try to, if anything, at best, they'll, make jokes, make light of it, throw a lot of BS out there. But they didn't take it seriously because, a lot of them were Trump supporters, so they basically took what Trump said as gospel and would basically echo his sentiments, so they didn't, COVID schmo, what do you care? Get out of here with that. They walking around without masks and laughing and coughing and sneezing as they going down the gallery, playing it like it's a joke. And we scared to death. So we taking it definitely serious and, trying to hold them accountable, basically having conversations with them, knowing that they're the ones that's introducing the virus to the facility. Like we haven't been anywhere. We, what I'm saying, we stuck in these boxes and they had locked the prison down. So, we would have, hoped or would have, expected them to take it a lot more serious, especially when we're seeing it in the news. We're seeing the numbers. We're seeing the death rate. So it's hard to imagine that someone wouldn't take that seriously. But like I say, they were echoing 45 sentiments. So it's like, it was kind of hard to, convince them to take it serious, convince them to wear their masks until, like I say, JB was doing the, I call him JB like I know him, but JB Presser, he was doing, the press conferences and things of that nature. And he kind of he mandated, I remember a point where he mandated it. He mandated them to wear masks and things of that nature. So they slowly started taking it serious, although they were still wearing it under their chins and things of that nature. But they started wearing them at some point. But yeah, they didn't keep us informed of anything. I said all that to say no. They didn't keep us informed of anything.
I remember.
Nothing factual.
Yeah, I was to say, I remember even with Eric, who's my son, being incarcerated in the beginning, it was really terrifying, as a mom, not having contact and not having control. And we too would listen to JB every day and look at the numbers and feel pretty terrified, actually. And like I said, he's been in prison for a long time, as you have, and those were probably some of the darkest moments.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when this hit, and because you just know how social distancing is completely impossible inside prison, any of the prisons. There's no such thing. Cleaning and, access to viral things and soap, even basics, it can be challenging. Did you think that the prisons you're saying they didn't take it seriously in the early days? Did they put any measures in place while you were there? Because you got out about 6 weeks after COVID really hit the US, like really we'd heard about it in January, but it wasn't mid-March actually beginning of March, but mid-March where we all started to kind of get pretty panicked. So were they doing any kind of safety measures before you left?
Right, yeah. And it's crazy you say it was only 6 weeks, Julie, because it seemed like it was so much longer than that. That's why that's to say how much, like how intense it was. This seemed like, I don't know why, it seemed like it was months. But
not really 2 months, because it was really the beginning of March.
Okay.
But I know for the first 14 days of March, the DOC just didn't really do anything.
Right.
Changed anything for the first 2 weeks, even though the US was starting to pivot, they weren't. And I just wonder, after March 14th, did they put anything in place, like masks? Did you receive masks?
Yeah. So at some point they started passing them out, and it was like way after we had seen in the press conference that they were supposed to be doing it. It was well after that, so we were questioning, we were writing grievances, we were talking to the ward, we were like anybody's ear we can get, in passing, because we didn't, have phone, things of that nature. We getting on our tablets, and sending messages out to our families, to our loved ones, hoping that they get them, because they were really screening those at that point, like anytime they know that they're doing something that they're not supposed to be doing, they screen the messages a little more, they scrutinize them a little more, and they slow drag the process of sending them out. But we sending messages out to our families and loved ones like, man, they not passing out masks. We're supposed to be getting masks. They say we're supposed to be getting masks every day. We're supposed to be doing this, doing this. The cleaning supplies are terrible. They were literally like, it was a point where they would walk around with a spray bottle, the CO, walk around with a spray bottle, and you had to stick your towel or whatever you wanted to put the chemical substance on. I don't even know what that stuff was, but whatever you wanted to put it on, you stick the towel out and they'll spray it twice. And that's what you had to use to, wipe down your cell, whatever, to clean your cell, to make your cell COVID free, as they stated it was supposed to do. Like, this was a special chemical that kills COVID, So anyway, they spray it on the towel twice and that's it, But yeah, in terms of masks, yeah, they were really slow about bringing the masks and supplies that we needed. And then I distinctly recall, because I was working in correctional industries and in a meat processing plant. So just one day out the blue, they finally brought the masks. They had distributed them that evening before. I'm sorry, they distributed them that evening before we came out for work. We had the single mask that they gave us, but we told them, hey, we're about to go to work. We have to work a full shift and we work in the meat processing plant. Can we get more masks? Because 9 out of 10, we're going to have to change these masks because we wear full gear. So there's, blood splashing, from the, the meat and stuff like that. So we tell them, like, these are subject, to get dirty or soil. We need, an extra mask. So, because we have to keep them on at all time. They was like, no, try not to get them dirty. That's our advice, but they're supposed to have enough supplies, huh? You say what, Julie?
I can understand that too, because I would listen to what when the governor mentioned incarcerated individuals, which was not frequent. But when the staff or anyone, it would say, oh yeah, we're doing this and this. And I'm like, that's not what we're hearing from any of the prisons. Which prison were you in?
I was in Hill Correctional.
Hill, okay.
Yeah.
So that's the medium. I know Stateville was probably one of the scariest, I think.
Yeah. And so that's what we were watching. We were watching what was happening at Stateville and Grayson, and scared to death, like, man, because it was decimating Stateville. So yeah, so they were telling us, hey man, good luck. Don't get it dirty. That's our advice. When all the time they supposed to pass them out a couple of times a day. It was some along them lines. And they had put it on the institutional channel. They had the audacity to put on the institutional channel what they're supposed to be doing, but weren't doing it, So that was a crazy time. I think that lasted like a few days until we, made enough noise to where they started letting us, change as we're going. Once we get there, as we're leaving, we get another mask. So, but in terms of general population, I think they were passing them out on the day shift and on the night shift or something like that. But it took quite some time. And in terms of cleaning supplies, that just was terrible.
So really everyone there, I know that you have probably 40 to 50 people that share 6 phones, 5 or 6 phones at a time. Did they supply any type of cleaner or disinfectant as people went from phone call to phone call, or was that up to you to use your 2 squirts for the phone?
No. So no. So at some point, they put a spray bottle on the landing under the stairs. You got a stairway, and it's a landing under the stairs that leads to the the bottom tier of the day room, and that's where the phones are located. So it kind of was on you, like if you were conscious of it and you want to do everything in your power to stay as safe as possible, he would grab the spray bottle, spray it on whatever article you brought from your cell. Mind you, this is something you brought from your personal cell, that you spray down, and then you're going to wipe the phone down with it. So some people would have socks, towels. You don't know exactly what they're doing with this stuff. Like, it's hard to, imagine. Like, it's funny how just under, extreme circumstances like that, the things that you will, kind of swallow, like, he just wiped it with his sock, but I got to use the phone, So, people, yeah,
very scary.
Yeah, they say desperate times call for desperate measures, you know. So yeah, they would you know, spray whatever they bring out of the cell and put it over the phone to kind of, you know, cover it as much as possible. But yeah, they did at some point start putting out, you know, chemicals and supplies, but it still wasn't, you know, done to the standards that you would expect when it being, you know, a full pandemic, you know, like they hadn't yet started wiping it down every time between day room. I think they might have started that right before I left. They had started letting the workers, you know, come out to wipe everything down before the whole day room came out. But it's still, well, not the whole day, but you know, they started letting out a certain amount of people, enough to fill the phones in the showers. But all of these people are using the same phones. All these people are using the same showers, you know. So
Yeah.
God forbid if somebody, you know, was infected with the virus, you know, it was nothing to really protect you in the way, you know, that you would like. Because again, there's no social distancing. We all using the same stuff. We're all in the same space all the time.
So you got out in April,
Mm-hmm.
and did you see much testing going on then?
No, no. And I had practically begged them to test me because I was about to go home and I was coming home
Yeah.
to my mother's. I was coming home to my mother's house, and you know, she's up in age. And like I say, that's all we seeing on the news. Like if you're over 55, your chance of survival was slim, you know, and especially if you're dealing with health issues, you know. And at that time she was pretty healthy, but she was up in age, and she, you know, she did have a bit of hypertension, but you know, other than that, you know, it was just like, but it was just scary in a general sense. Like I'm coming home to my mom, I don't know if I've contracted the virus. They had cases by then. By the time I came home, they had cases in Hill. They had already made a wing for isolation wing. They had already developed. They already had the isolation wing, and the people that had contracted the virus who were on that wing. But they had moved people off the wing from the person who had contracted the virus onto other wings. So we don't know what's going on. Then we heard that somebody had a case in the kitchen, one of the kitchen supervisors, where they passed out the trays to the entire institution. So we don't know what's going on, who has it, and we know that it's possible to be asymptomatic. So
Right.
I had no way of knowing if I was infected or not. So I raised these concerns. I voiced these concerns. I stressed these concerns, but they said, you know, there was nothing they can do. If I wasn't showing symptoms, I couldn't be tested. And their method at that point, it was kind of a, you know, just an observation method. So if you had any symptoms, any like cold-like symptoms, not just flu, like cold-like symptoms, they will isolate you. They put you on that wing by yourself or with a couple of people that's there, and they just observe you. So if you got better, awesome. If you didn't get better, oops, you might have it, you know. And by that time, you're fighting for your life, you know. So
So they didn't even, so walk me through this, because it's, say the guy in the cell next to you
mhm.
is showing symptoms and they take him out and they isolate him. But what about his cellmate? Because all of the cells at Hill are 2 men cells, correct?
Yeah,
People share a space of about what, 6 by 8 feet?
about
With
approximately.
very little ventilation
Yeah,
and two
very little.
squirts of disinfectant.
Yeah.
So they take your neighbor out because he's symptomatic. And what about his cellmate or his, term celly, right?
Yeah, yeah. At that time, so I remember early on that they weren't, you know, following the correct measures. So if one person had showed symptoms, they would ask the other person a series of questions. If he's not, you know, showing any symptoms, or he, you know, not complaining of any, you know, chest pain or symptom, flu-like or cold-like symptoms, they be like, okay, he's cool. Let's take the guy that's showing the symptoms, right? Not factor in that you could be asymptomatic, you know, or any of that. And, you know, like I say, they weren't testing. So, you know, that's it. They just asked you a series of questions. If you felt okay, then 9 out of 10, you were okay, because this guy might just have a cold. We're gonna put him over there and see what happens.
So this person stays behind in your, what do you call them? Galleries? Your
Yeah, on the wing, on the
wing.
unit.
So
Yeah.
your wing, about how many people are on a wing?
112 approximately.
112.
Hmm.
And how many would go out, say, to day room to make phone calls?
Um, I would say about
Because they don't let all.
almost 40 at a time, like
So
almost 40
they
some at a
let
time,
40
30 some
people
at a
out,
time.
and cellmate B, who was non-symptomatic,
Hmm.
he goes out with all of them, right? And
Hmm.
the phone and
Yep.
not,
Yep.
and this is when very serious guidelines were coming out. So,
Absolutely.
um, so that was good. At least you got a phone call. What did they put any restrictions on your privileges in general? Commissary or visiting or
Oh
outdoor?
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Um, so I definitely was there when they stopped the visits. Uh, they stopped the visits. Commissary was being brought to your cell, and there was a limited amount of things you could purchase, a limited amount of money you could spend. Um, no yard, none of that stuff. They had pretty much shut down everything. They had started the video visits back. I remember them stopping it for a time, but then they started those back. They started video visits back, but those were like, that experience alone was causing people to, not really want to partake in that. So yeah. But pretty much everything else was shut down in terms of movement. They were doing the essential worker thing. So you had some kitchen workers going to work, and you had the correctional industries guys going to work, because the correctional industry guys make them money, so they have to make sure that they went to work. But yeah, yeah. Um, Outside of that, they had completely shut down everything.
So no outside time, no yard time,
No.
which is, I think it's one of the, I know they're still limiting yard time for a lot of
Yeah.
institutions, which I don't understand that. I just,
Yeah, and it makes no sense with the information that they have now. Like I say, that was early on. That was, the beginning. So I can imagine a lot of stuff was scary, even though they act like they wasn't really concerned. I could imagine, like, you didn't know what to do, so you definitely didn't know what not to do. You know what I'm saying? So it's like one of them things was just like, oh, just put, everything had come to a screeching halt. But like moving forward, months down the line, year down the line, come on, man.
so
Makes
lucky
no
you
sense.
had an essential job, so you got to get out of your cell every day.
I did.
But there were other people who had to be locked in the whole entire day.
Absolutely. And it was only like we were working with a skeleton crew. So, in terms of all the workers that went to work, it was only like 12 of us, 12, 14. There's only 14 of us, so everybody else was done. Everybody else was cooked. You just had to stay in the cell to further notice.
Till they, how often did they run your daytime room time, like for phone calls? Did they do that
Day
during?
room was daily. They did it daily for a certain amount of time, but that didn't start till it seemed like a couple of weeks. They had us in the cell for a certain amount of time, even with the workers. Like initially, they had everything locked down, and then they started slowly letting guys out for day room, and they will only do like a few sales at a time. So it was daily, but your chances of going every day was kind of slim, depending on how they ran it, because they ran it the way they saw fit. If they wasn't in the foyer playing cards, or what I'm saying, just messing around, then they would run it the way it's supposed to be. So there's an allotted amount of time, and this amount of time you had the opportunity to use the phone to get your shower, when you lock back up, so the next guys could come out. And so they were so nonchalant about it, or so just indifferent about it. They didn't really care. They'd come, 15 minutes past the time, 20 minutes past the time. It was literally on us to go in, so we could let the next group of guys go out, or we have to get their attention. Hey, we're going in, so these guys could come out. Just in fairness, like we had to kind of work with each other to make it fair to each other. Because if they didn't get it done on this shift, they might not do it on the next shift. So them guys might have to skip a day. It was weird. Or we might have to skip a day coming back around, because it's going to take so long for them to get the whole wing. You know what I'm saying?
So you had to, like, basically self-police yourselves in.
Yeah, which we often have to do. Yeah.
Well, let's switch a little bit here. Like, how was it for your family with you being inside with COVID? I mean, did you talk to your mom on the phone or any loved ones, and that had to be pretty scary for them.
Yeah, yeah. And initially most of the communication was through the tablets, so you had to kind of like explain and lay out everything, and you don't want anything to get lost in translation of feeling anxious about it. You don't want to really, you know you don't want that to translate through the wire, and you got your people all nervous, and you know what I'm saying, they frightened for you as it is, because they're seeing everything, right,
Right.
through the media
Right.
and stuff like that. So they're seeing how it's affecting the prison, and they know that the healthcare system is deplorable at best. So they know, like, chances are, if we get sick, you just brace for it. It can go one way or the other, but it's just scary because the numbers are saying that it's going the other way. A lot of people were dying in prison from this, virus. So they were very concerned. I would try to, text my mom, keep her in good spirit, because I was concerned about her. But I was concerned about myself as well, because, who wants to die in prison? Like, the thought of that, especially after doing all that time, is just like, my story can't end like this. Like, that's the,
Yeah,
pretty
you
much,
were sentenced to die in prison, right?
yeah, so that was pretty much,
Yeah.
the general consensus. But yeah, a lot of your family members are concerned, because like I say, they're seeing how it's affecting the prison. And again, prisoners doing these daily press conferences, and they quote the numbers, and they giving the stats, and what I'm saying. So they're really concerned about their loved ones passing away in prison. That's got to be tough. That'd been a tough time, and I would see it. They would kind of express it to me through the tablet. Make sure you're doing this. Make sure how they been passing out masks. How they doing this, and I would tell them. I would tell them the truth. Like, no, but I'm doing the best I can. To social distance or to protect myself. Although social distance was practically impossible. I would tell, like, yeah, me and my cellie are keeping away from everybody and trying to do this just to kind of comfort them as best as I could.
It had to be really a burden for you too, because you said your mom is older
Mm-hmm.
and you had to be worried about that too, right?
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
did you
Yeah.
tell your mom stay in?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I didn't have to say that too often. Like, they took it very seriously. Like, because my mom and my sister, uh, my sister especially, now she's in the nursing profession. You know what I'm saying? So, and my mom, she did music and nursing. That's always been her thing. So they as you know, people who have experience in the medical field, they took it seriously. And my sister was working in the hospital at the time. She's working at the University of Chicago, so
Oh, wow.
she's seeing these cases, and she was on the front line for a time until she said, "Hey, I'm out of here, y'all tripping," But she was seeing people coming in, and yeah, with all these cases and the numbers spiking and people dying, so they took it very seriously.
You know, Illinois Department of Corrections reported just over 10,000 COVID cases last year, or since it started, and 88 deaths. They didn't test early on. Do you think those numbers are underestimated?
Oh yeah,
And fully a third of the people had COVID, but
yeah, yeah. Those numbers are definitely underestimated.
yeah, and 88 people lost their lives to COVID in prison who, maybe wouldn't have had to. People who, I always look at it as they weren't sentenced to die in prison, and and they did. And for their mothers and sisters and spouses who were waiting, or husbands sometimes, it's really bad. Do you think that officers, were they wearing their masks, like when they were passing out trays and talking with each other? And
Nope. The
no.
only time you would have to literally convince them or threaten them, to pull up their mask, not physically anything, but
Yeah.
threaten to, write the grieves or report them, in order for them to pull up their mask. Then they, stop whining, stop bitching, like, like
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
these are some of the responses that, huh? I'm
That
sorry,
has its
Julie.
own issues with you challenging a correctional officer, I would think that.
Say it one more time, Julie.
I said it has its own issue with you
Hmm.
challenging a correctional officer, right? Like,
Yeah.
pull up your mask. I don't even like to tell people that in the store.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, that there were challenges with it, but not to the extent of like you getting in any trouble for telling them, because they know what they're supposed to be doing. So they know that they could potentially get in trouble. But there's just such a culture of indifference, when it comes to um COs in the Department of Correction, when it comes to staff. Like they just, I don't know, just so blasé and nonchalant about pretty much everything when it comes to anything that's going to benefit us in any way. So um,
Yeah, definitely.
so our health and safety is not, you know,
My
it's
concern.
not any exception. Like they don't,
Right.
they didn't care. Like as long as they were straight and they felt that they were okay. Even though they had a couple cases of staff getting sick, I just like you would think like that would, what I'm saying, stir some in them or shake them like, whoa, okay. And they know that you could potentially die from this virus, but like they just, I don't know. Like I say, 45 had them really convinced that, it's no big deal, man. People, you stand a better chance of dying from the flu. More people die from the flu. It's whatever.
When, yeah, when you have the top best medical care in the world, it is a little bit easier to not get too sick. So you were released in April,
Mm-hmm.
end of April 2020, height of the virus. I mean, people were not going out, barely going to the grocery store. A lot of people were having their groceries delivered to their house. Our world really changed out here. Um, did that surprise you at all? Like when you got out, did you think it would be as restrictive, or was it less restrictive than you thought it would be?
Oh, wow. So yeah, I was expecting it to look almost apocalyptic out here. Like, you see it, the way you see stuff on the news, like they're literally showing empty expressways and things of that nature. So I have these pictures in my head, in my mind. And so I would have to say, even though everything like life as we knew it had come to a screeching halt, there were still signs of life. There was still little movement here and there. So I would say that I expected to be way worse than it was, although it was pretty damn bad. Like it was like you could tell, like this is not the world I left, and this is a new thing. Because I remember seeing when they first started distributing the masks and things of that nature, I would say, like, man, it's funny because I used to look at, China, right? When they show, the things going over in China, you see all the people walking around with masks and it looks so crazy, and like now that's us. We're the mask people, So yeah, so seeing that and the strict, like how, strict the rules and guidelines are, like you gotta have it on, you better have it on. You fearful not having it on. And my sister came to pick me up, and as soon as I come out, I'm like, oh, it's like, pull your mask up. I'm like, oh, because they came down a little bit from me talking, it's like, pull your mask up. What are you on? Like, oh, I'm sorry, baby, but it was like, yeah, it was tough. But yeah, people were, a few people were in the stores, things of that nature, but there was a lot of stuff that was, shut down completely. Like, yeah. So it was, I said that to say it wasn't, as bad as I had pictured it, but it was still pretty bad.
So your sister came to pick you up. Anyone else? And what did they think about you coming home during the pandemic? Were they kind of, sounds like your sister was, maybe a little bit nervous
Mm-hmm.
because you might be bringing COVID with you?
Right. So yeah. And I recommended that my mom not come, because I didn't want, to be confined in that, I want us to be confined in that small space. Uh my niece was asthmatic, or is asthmatic, so I was concerned about her too coming, but she threw a total fit, so they just got a bigger big SUV, type situation where we could kind of spread out as much as possible, because she wasn't having it. She was coming to pick her uncle up.
Aw.
So yeah, so we all had our masks and stuff on. A childhood friend of mine had came, and yeah, we spread out, we social distance as much as we possibly could. But my sister was concerned, but like I say, I was really, really concerned, coming out, that I was, I didn't know if I had contracted the virus. I had like literally no way of knowing, because you could be asymptomatic. So, And I knew that there were cases there, and I knew that, you know, the way that they were doing things, the procedures weren't, you know, weren't up to par. So it's a chance that a lot of people had it that didn't know they had it, you know. And then I had, you know, the sinus issues and stuff like that. So you wake up one day with the sniffles, you're like, oh man, they got me, you know, and you know, they just so
Yeah.
you constantly, you know, concerned. Yeah.
I think we all did do that. Like
Yeah.
every time my throat hurt a little bit, that's it. It's the virus.
Right.
So
Right.
one of the things when people get released, well, you were gone 25 years,
No, 28 and a half. 28 and a
28
half,
and a half
Julie.
years.
Yeah.
So, and I think one of the big things when you get out is the anticipation after eating prison food for 28 and a half years and limited food is the anticipation of sharing a meal with family members or on your way home, because Hill is a 3-hour drive from Chicago, of going to the restaurant and ordering steak and eggs and whatever. And I'd often ask people, what's the first thing you ate? But what did that look like? Because it had to be something you thought about for years, decades,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. There was no dining in, none whatsoever. So, you know, we had to go through the drive-through. It was so like, ah man.
Fast food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, so I just, you know, and still, even with that, you know, it's still an experience coming over from prison because you have options. You're not accustomed to having options, right? So you look at this menu and there's all these items, and it's just like, well, I don't know what I want. And you've seen all these commercials, and I want to try this. I want to try the Impossible Whopper and the, you know, the super spectacular double bacon burger, and you know, all this type of stuff. You want to these different flavor shakes and stuff. So I'm looking at the menu, I'm confused. They frustrated, like, dude, just order something, please, so we can go, you know. So I still made an experience out of it. You know, it was still like, you know,
Yeah.
his family and friends, his loved ones, and I'm home, and you know, this is funny, it's so cute. He don't know what he wanted, this whole, you know, thing. But
So
yeah,
not to
I
do a
missed that
plug,
experience of
not to do a plug for the fast food restaurant, but what did you get to eat when you got out?
oh
Where did you go?
uh
Was it was it Burger King?
yeah, so I think it was Wendy's. It was Wendy's.
Wendy's. Okay.
Yeah. Wendy's. It was this crispy chicken, the spicy crispy chicken thing I wanted to try. I ended up settling on because, like I say, it was so much stuff. You know, it was so much stuff. I ended up settling on that, and some fries, and then I wanted a caramel sundae from McDonald's. That used to be my thing. That used to be my thing. So I wanted a caramel sundae from McDonald's with extra caramel. I kept it pretty simple. But then my main request once we got close to home was Portillo. That was the big thing. That was high
There you
on my
go.
list. Yeah, went to Portillo. That's where I was really stuck. That's why I was really stuck. So they just got me like three things. Like, yeah, just get it all. Yeah,
That's awesome. That's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah, they don't have Portillo's out towards Galesburg where Hill is.
No, but they actually opened one up in Peoria. They actually opened one up in Peoria. I heard, Julie, but they say it's not the same. Not to I don't want them to lose.
Oh.
Yeah, but anyway, but yeah, but I definitely missed out on the you know, family dining experience, to sit down, you know,
Yeah, and
dining
it just
experience.
had to be, but you made the best of it, which is super awesome.
Hmm.
So who did you where did you go home to when you were released?
I
Was
went
it
parole to my mom's house.
to your mom's? And you hadn't had a COVID test, and that had to be a little bit scary. How was your mom with that? Was she like, I don't care, give me a hug anyway? But
No, it wasn't. No, she definitely cared. She definitely cared. We didn't, you know, run into each other's arms and I pick her up and swing her around. We didn't do that thing. It was more like, okay, side hug, love you, glad you're home. Go downstairs. Yeah, go
Go
down. That's your area down there. Love you. There's some stuff down there for you. You know.
yeah, that's different than what other
Yeah,
people have been able to do.
yeah,
Some of them have, all their extended family and a big.
yeah. Big
Have you been able to do
party and
that yet? Because I know you're vaccinated. You're fully vaccinated, right?
right.
Now,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I made it a point to be. Yeah, I'm fully vaccinated. I haven't had the opportunity to celebrate me yet, but I have, you know, went to a couple of family gatherings and birthdays that were, you know, some people there. I've seen some extended family that I hadn't, seen since I've been home. Yeah, I didn't really get to celebrate that, that first birthday, first Thanksgiving, first Christmas, only because, my mother was struggling with health issues, so I had to be there for her. And so I didn't get the opportunity to really, celebrate and have those, big social gatherings. I wasn't, my head wasn't in it. I had a lot of responsibility that I had to, take care of. But I am looking forward to that, just to, be able to, celebrate, those holidays, occasions that I, look so forward to doing. You look so forward to being present at. But I made the most of it. I made the most of the holidays. But yeah, I still haven't had the opportunity to have that, that big celebration for me, but it's okay.
Well, I know even with our family group, we have a group, as you know, that meets monthly,
Mm-hmm.
and moms and aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters, and um, who have loved ones who were incarcerated, were sentenced, many of them to life, but all of them long term, and all of them when they were young. And we usually meet in person monthly, and we're always so joyous when someone comes home, and we always invite them to a meeting. And the guys usually come, and we have a cake and lunch, and we haven't been able to do that with any of our guys that returned. So I feel that, and we're going to do it. We're
You're
still
absolutely going to. It's just a matter of time. Not even a matter of hope
right.
anymore. It's just a
Okay.
matter of time now. Yeah.
So what was it like to get you get out, you have your fast food. Now you face the reality of getting your IDs, getting your paperwork together, insurance maybe of some sort, uh, hopefully a job. I know I just lumped a bunch of stuff together, but what were those challenges? They had to be really, really compounded.
Yeah, it was a daunting task. It was pretty tough. So one thing I spoke about recently is I was grateful that my supervisor at the correctional industries plant where I worked, he made sure that we got our birth certificate and social security card to kind of prepare us for such an occasion for when we come home. We'd be able to take that stuff, go to DMV, set up bank accounts, this, that, and other. You got everything you need at your disposal. Couldn't have predicted a COVID pandemic, right? So with all the preparation, is just nothing, that you could have done about that. So I come home and everything is closed. Everything is shut down. So these items are useless. I also have a picture ID that they give you upon release that's is valid for 30 days. But again, everything was closed. Secretary of State was closed. I couldn't get anything online. I couldn't open a bank account because I didn't have, any state ID, anything. That didn't have any, real picture ID, and they wouldn't let me do it with the prison ID. So I had to wait a little over 30 months. I'm sorry. Um, um, a little over 30 days. And the reason I remember that it was over 30 days, because when I went to the Secretary of State, my photo ID had
Oh
expired.
no.
Yeah. So we had to wait on this ridiculously long line. As Nelson said, what did he say, wrapped around the building 5 times? Like, we had to wait in this ridiculously long line to get up to the front, only to be told that you didn't have the right credentials. And it turns out I had brought the copy of my birth certificate. I didn't have the original with me. I brought the copy of my birth certificate, had my social security card, which he checked and said, okay, this appears to be you, but you don't have everything you need. I needed 2 pieces of mail. Just come home from prison doing 28 and a half years. I don't have utility mail. I don't have these things, right? And they I don't know how they expected me to. I have this picture ID, but it's no longer valid because the time is run out. Although he knows that you guys have been closed. There's no way that I could have came within this 30-day period. And they've been giving extensions on everything. Like, how do I not, right? They was giving what do they call that, Julie? Like the extended period, like
Yeah, right. They give you
you have extra amount of time.
yeah, and a grace period they should have
A
given.
grace period, exactly. It's like you had a grace period on everything else. but this, like, it was crazy. So long story short, I ended up having to go back like 3 times. I had to go to the courthouse, get the original um birth certificate, and once I finally got there, everything's a go. I was able to get my state ID finally. It took some time, but I was finally able to get it. I was gonna do my license the same day. Get there and find out I had a ticket from when I was 16 years old, from like
Oh, they can still find that.
1990. Huh?
They can still find that, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Although I'm not in the system, I couldn't do. I'm a ghost. All this did they find that they was, they plugged me in. Oh, you got a ticket. You can't get your license. So 30 years later, I had to pay for the ticket in order to get my license reinstated and everything. So it was a heck of a process, man. And it was frustrating to say the least, because you have to keep leaving, going back, keep going, leaving, going back, standing this long line. Thank God, uh, the program manager, Restore Justice, Mr. Wendell Robinson, he gave me some advice that he had came across, that you can go to the DMV, the Secretary of State, at a certain time in the afternoon, and you will be able to get right in. It was like I couldn't wrap my head around it, because I've seen and stood in those lines. Like, no way you getting right in there at any time until they close. But the thing was, everybody had the same idea. Everybody was showing up first thing in the morning, getting there before they open so they can get a good place in line. So everybody's trying to get there as early as possible. So as the day went on, the line winds down because nobody's thinking to come late. Like, why would you do that? That's ridiculous. But turns out I went like not too long before they closed and was able to get right in. Ended up having to go back to the car, went right back in. So that worked out
Well,
after a long period of time, but it was definitely rough.
I just want to ask you one more thing about the governor, and we thank him very much, made the vaccine accessible and available to every incarcerated individual and also to all the staff. We understand about 70% of incarcerated individuals got the vaccine, but less than 30% of staff. Why would you think they would be unwilling to get the vaccine? That just seems like dangerous, and that's a really low percentage, not even 50%.
Yeah. Like I was saying earlier, Julia, there's always been a culture of indifference when it comes to staff at IDOC. Like, they just don't care, about things that might affect us. If it's us that's dying at an alarming rate, or that's contracting the virus at an alarming rate, it's no big deal. Their numbers are low, you know what I'm saying? But they were contracting it at a pretty significant rate too, right, Julie?
Right.
So
Sorry about that.
I can't say why they wouldn't have, been more, on board with getting the vaccine, but I know that I'm accustomed to that being the thing. I'm accustomed to them behaving like that. I'm accustomed to, them, being against anything that, that's beneficial for us, even at their own detriment. Like, it don't matter if, just anything that, to thumb their nose at, the administration, if you will, or, at us, anything that's going to benefit us, they're not on board with it.
Well, we're so glad that you're home, Harold. I think that you really are going to be a great contributor to society, and here at Restore Justice, we're happy to have you on board. We were thrilled. And I had a bunch of more questions, but we're out of time. So I know it went so fast, but I'm going to ask viewers to go on Restore Justice's website, and you can see a blurb about Harold and also about Restore Justice. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Thank you for having me, Julie. Thank you. I appreciate you all. Bye, everybody.